What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm gonna share with you my 4 most embarrassing mistakes in the studio. And yes, the worst one, I actually ruined a session for Timbaland. So look, we all make mistakes as engineers in the studio. It's just, there's so much going on, so much to keep track of. You just screw up sometimes. I certainly have, even for some pretty big names, which is the worst mistake I'm gonna share at the end of this video involving Timbaland at a big studio. But first, my first most embarrassing mistake was demolishing a singer's confidence. And what happened was we were recording vocals for a local band, and so he gets in the booth and we're starting to do some takes, trying to get some sounds dialed in. I'm tweaking the compressor, and the voice just sounds very thin. It almost sounds distorted, like as if it's not getting a full signal or something's just not right. So of course I start pulling out cables. I'm looking at the back of the gear. I'm trying every input on my interface. I'm switching out XLR cables. I'm checking everything. This went on for probably at least 30 to 45 minutes, and I'm back and forth and I'm just at a loss. I'm like, what is going on? Like, nothing I'm doing is making any difference at all. So finally, I'm just completely lost, and I decide to just go in the room with the singer and just be like, okay, you know what? Like, is it possible that this is literally just the sound of your voice? So I go into the room, I stand in the live room, I play the track, and I'm in the room with him as he's singing, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is what's literally coming out of his mouth, out of his throat. That's the way his voice sounds. And I was just so embarrassed. I mean, I just spent 45 minutes like telling the guy something doesn't sound right, it sounds bad, it sounds thin, it sounds rough, distorted, like it just sounds like something's wrong, it's something on my end, I gotta try to fix it, sorry man. And then in that moment, I'm sitting there and I just have to be like, dude, I'm sorry, that's actually the sound of your voice. And then, and you know what, it wasn't bad, he wasn't a bad singer or anything, it's just like this unique sound of his voice. I literally had never heard anything like it before. It was as if someone had, taken an EQ and put like the telephone effect on it. That's what it sounded like. So I thought something was wrong, and I tried for a very long time to fix it, and it turned out to be just his voice. So lesson learned, if there's something that's sounding weird and you can't figure out what it is and you think that everything should be good on your end, just listen to it in the room, even if it's a human voice, because more often than not, the problem is just at the source and it's not the audio gear. Definitely something you don't want to happen right before you start tracking vocals for an album is spend an hour telling the singer that his voice sounds bad. All right, number 2 stupid thing I did in the studio is blow up my ribbon mic with a trumpet. So I got a Royer 121 ribbon mic to use mostly on guitar cabs, but they sound really good on horn instruments too. They kind of smooth off that kind of harsh, loud high end, and make it this just really nice warm sound for trumpets and other horns, trombones. And I was recording a band that had that years ago. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna use my Royer mic, and it sounded awesome. And I knew everything about ribbon mics, how they worked. I read the documentation that came with the Royer mic, and it said, if you're using it on a source that's blowing air, make sure it's off axis, use a pop filter, because the ribbon is just this tiny piece of metal that's moving to actually create the sound. So naturally you don't want to blow tons of air at it because it's going to stretch the ribbon. But of course, I'm in the session and I'm not thinking, and I literally put the ribbon mic here and the trumpet player here, and he's literally just blowing the trumpet into the ribbon. And it sounded great for the first day that we're doing it, and then when I went to use that mic again on a guitar cab, I could literally hear the ribbon moving and hitting the side of the mic and hitting the magnets and making a really loud, nasty pop sound, and it just sounded loose and flabby. I even put on headphones. I picked up the ribbon mic, I was moving it around like this, and I could hear the ribbon moving. I was like, oh man, I'm such an idiot. $1,000 plus mic, actually maybe closer to $2,000 or $1,500 or something. But anyway, expensive mic, ribbon mic, and I just basically took an air horn and just blew it right into it. So pretty dumb. Luckily I was covered. I got to send it back to Royer, and we get 1 free re-ribbon of that mic. So they sent it back, a new ribbon. They said it was one of the worst they'd ever seen. So that's number 2, blowing up my ribbon mic with a trumpet. All right, number 3, this one is a secret that I've kept for many years. I was recording with Silverstein, their album Rescue. We were in a big studio in Toronto. We had tons of mics on the drums, too many. I have a podcast actually about mistakes I made producing that record, but I was just making things way too complex, a little bit in over my head. So we're about halfway through tracking the drums on this album, and we're like 3 or 4 takes into the drums on this song, and I look at the DAW and I realize I am not recording the overhead tracks. So, you know, we had all of these, we had like so many pairs of room mics that like there was a lot of cymbals in there, so that's why I didn't hear that the overheads weren't in there, because we had so many mics and rooms. But yeah, I had basically, you know, had opened up a new session and I imported all the tracks, and somehow I forgot to import the overhead track, and it just wasn't there. It wasn't recording, and we were deep into tracking this song already. So in that moment, I think I realized it as we're in the middle of a take, and it just dawns on you, and you're like, you know, the rest of the band's in the room, we're all listening to the take, we're, you know, deciding what we need to change or do better, and I'm sitting there knowing that everything we've done on this song is useless, and I'm freaking out, thinking that I forgot to do it on other songs too, and didn't even realize. So all that's happening as we're doing the take, and you know, eventually we finished the take, and I just was like, you know what, man, I don't know, I masterfully maneuvered my way out of this situation and ended up discreetly importing the overhead track back in, double checking to make sure it was all there, and just managing to start again and not really say what was going on and just say we needed to get it again. And we ended up getting the song down, and actually no one knew this. I never told the band. Sometimes you got to do that. You're making mistakes, but you don't want to seem like you're totally incompetent, especially on an important project. But that's what happened, and I managed to keep that a secret from the band. It all worked out okay. I went to the old sessions, and you know, they were good. I had the overtracks there. It was just this one mistake. So if any guys from that band are watching this, sorry to break it to you. I totally screwed that up, but was able to hide that from you. Sorry for that secret. And this is the first time I'm saying that, and it's kind of funny to look back on that. It's just I remember that feeling, just like, whoa, no, what is happening right now? All right, guys, number 4, my most embarrassing studio mistake was putting the mic backwards for Timbaland. Yeah, this was back when I was interning / assisting at a big studio in Toronto. From time to time, we had really big artists come through. So in this case, Justin Timberlake was in town for a concert, and they wanted to collaborate with Timbaland, or the label wanted them to collaborate or something. So they flew up a whole team of people, you know, beat makers, a whole posse. It was a really big deal. So guys making beats for a few days, or I think it was a whole week in the studio. And, you know, they're doing some good stuff. And then finally, Timbaland shows up one night. It's really busy. You know, they had an engineer up there from Atlanta, and he was working away. And, you know, he calls me. I'm kind of in the lounge, I think. And he opens the door. He's like, dude, can you go set up a U87 in the live room? We need to lay down a vocal idea really quick. So I jump up, I grab the mic, I plug in, I put it in the middle of the room. We're all good to go. Headphones are there. It's all good. And, you know, I wasn't allowed in the control room for this particular session, so I just set it up, I walked away, I just told him, okay, it's good to go, man. So he goes in, and later that night, after the session is over, the engineer comes over to me, and this is an engineer, he's working with Timbaland, he's working with Usher, all these big name guys, right? And he comes up, he's like, dude, you put the mic backwards. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, the mic was backwards, we didn't get the take. He went in there, he had this idea he wanted to lay down with, and you know, it sounded bizarre, and I couldn't figure out what sounded wrong. It sounded really distant. I thought the mic was wrong. I changed the cable, you know. I was trying to figure it out. It just sounded bizarre. Turns out the mic was pointing at the glass and not at Timbaland, and I guess this went on. You know, the engineer couldn't figure it out for, you know, the first 5 minutes or whatever, and then, you know, Timbaland just walked out. He's like, you know what, the moment's gone. Screw this. I'm done. And literally, they had this team of people at the studio for a week. Timbaland showed up that one night, and I don't think they actually laid down anything usable, and it could possibly be because I ruined the entire vibe by putting the mic backwards. Needless to say, that was probably the most embarrassing mistake I've made in the studio, to have Timbaland and Usher's engineer tell you that you put the mic backwards, and Timbaland walked out because the vibe was ruined and they couldn't get the idea down, and it was my fault. So to all the Timbaland fans out there, I'm sorry. I potentially ruined one of his ideas that maybe could have been a platinum hit, but it never happened. Sorry, guys. So I wanted to share these embarrassing mistakes in the studio because, you know, it just proves that if someone like me can make those mistakes during my learning journey, and to this day, of course, during sessions, I'll make mistakes, but it's okay. You know, just keep going. You know, if I can do all that stuff and still end up with, label credits and working with bands I admire and respect, you can do it too. So every time you make one of these mistakes, just try your best to shrug it off, laugh it off, learn from it, make sure that you don't do it again. I mean, I promise you, I will not put a microphone backwards again for a singer. Like, I will always make sure that that is right from now on. And all the other mistakes too, I've learned from those. It's never gonna happen again. So as long as you don't make the same mistake 2 or 3 times, you're in good shape. Keep learning, keep growing. And if I can get away with that stuff and still make records for a living, then you've got a shot too. Before I go, bonus round. Number 5 mistake I made in the studio was trying to teach myself for 2 years. I started out knowing nothing. I tried to just use magazines and message boards online to try to learn how to record and mix records, and I barely improved at all for like 2 years. And it wasn't until I went and got an internship till I started talking to engineers that are way ahead of me, trying to sit in with them, trying to get their advice, ask them questions, see how they worked. That's when things really started opening up, and I rapidly improved, went full-time in my studio and never looked back. So if you're in that situation, you're trying to teach yourself, it's gonna go really slow. Yes, there's lots of resources out there, but how do you know who, if you're listening to the right person or not, if the information they're giving you is good? And it just, just listen to what's coming out of your speakers. If you've been working at this for a while, trying to teach yourself, and it's not really working out that great, or you're frustrated with how slow it's coming together, then I wanna encourage you to subscribe to this channel, watch a bunch of my mix tutorials here, and then get on the email list. I have a bunch of recording and mixing courses that are very premium, high-end, will give you everything you need to know to rapidly improve your recordings and mixes for heavy music, rock, metal, hardcore, even pop rock stuff, anything with real instruments. But that's what I do here on this channel at the website, hardcoremusicstudio.com. So I want you to click the link below to get onto my email list. That's where I send all of my best stuff. And there's a lot of content that I don't publish on YouTube or on the website or anything like that. You only get it from the email list, a lot of my best and most valuable mixing and recording secrets. So click on the link, hardcoremusicstudio.com or makebetterrecords.com. Get my free mixing cheat sheet, which is gonna help you out right away if you need some starting points for mixing your music. And again, I'm gonna send you a bunch of free stuff, free videos, blogs, advice, and info about making records, guys. And the goal is to make it your job to make records. Do this for a living, right? What could be better? That's the dream. There's been a handful of guys who've already gone through my training and actually quit their jobs and now are full-time engineers and producers in their studios. So I hope you'll join me on this journey. Can't wait to help you out. Thanks for watching this video. Oh, by the way, if you've got a ridiculous, embarrassing studio story, please leave a comment below. I don't want to feel like I'm the only one here who's done stupid things in the studio. So let's hear your mistakes in the comments. Everyone will get a laugh out of it. Can't wait to read what you guys write here. All right, take it easy.